What's going on? It is time for Pastor's Perspective. My name is Brian Perez, and we are here live on this rainy Wednesday afternoon. At least it's raining here in Southern California, and we're ready to take your phone calls. 888-564-6173 is the number. We're going to be here until 4 o'clock, and we would love to chat with you at 888-564-6173. You can also send in your questions online. We've got a few ways that you can do that. We have the Pastor's Perspective Facebook page. You can send us your question using Messenger, or you can DM us on the Pastor's Perspective Instagram, or you can go to our flagship radio station's website, kwave.com. The Pastor's Perspective page has a form that you can fill out. That gets your question to us. But that's not the best way to get your question answered. The best way is to call us when we are here live, like today, at 888-564-6173. And answering your questions today, we've got author and apologist Dr. Bobby Conway, the pastor of Image Church in Charlotte, Carolina. Bobby is joining us online.
Charlotte, Carolina.
Is that what I said? Did I forget to say North?
North. That's right.
Okay, take two. Bobby's Skyping in from Charlotte, Carolina North. No, that didn't sound right either.
Do you know who else lives in Charlotte, North Carolina?
Who?
My daughter.
Oh, really?
Just moved there.
Is she going to Bobby's church yet?
She's not going to Bobby's church. It's just too awesome for her. She's like, you could probably check out. She's like, it's just too good.
Yeah. How's it going, Bobby?
Good to be with you guys.
Yeah, and it'll be good to have you here in a few weeks. We'll talk about that a little bit later on the program. Here in the studio with me is Dr. Ed Stetzer, the Dean of the Talbot School of Theology at Biola University. What's new with you, Ed?
Oh, it's raining, so Southern California is falling apart.
Oh, man.
So that's the big news. But no, good stuff. I was just sitting down with over at Talbot and talking about some of the future plans. We just had a good conversation this morning about launching our Chinese initiative. We're very excited about that. And yesterday we launched our Korean initiative. So now we have a Korean language program. We're fully launching this fall, but just added the staff. So it's always fun. At Talbot School of Theology, Biola University, the most comprehensively Christian. You miss saying that?
I do.
The most
I'll say it for old time's sake.
Christian university in North America.
And talk about the Doritos commercial or whatever that was.
Yeah, so it's so crazy. So the Doritos commercial, of course, the two commercials everyone's talking about on the Super Bowl. One was the He Gets Us commercial, and the other was the Doritos commercial. So the Doritos commercial, the reason that Brian Perez said talk about it is it's actually the second time Biola University people have won. And so I think it's not, there was one, it's not everyone's Biola, but like Biola actually tweeted the list of all the alum who are involved in this. Mm-hmm. And it's like all these Biola, I can't say kids, but they're my daughter's age. So all these Biola young adults. Yeah. And it just, we have the Snyder Film School of Cinema Media Arts, which is, I have to confess, I literally just was at it. I had in and out on the way here. So the Snyder is named after the Snyder family, who actually gave the money for the building of the film school. So we're whole building this. So the film school here, which is a top 10 or 20 variety magazine, not a Christian publication, ranked us, I forget if it was top 10 or 20, only Christian school. And so these film school students are coming, they're learning these skills, they're putting them in place. And Doritos had a contest. Their ad won, and it was the alien one. And so super fun to me to see Biola graduates, particularly of our film school, which is such a marquee part of our program, to see Biola graduates sort of leading out in this space, and right at our film school.
That is so cool.
It is. It was fun. I was, I don't watch a lot of sports ball, so I just knew I didn't want the Chiefs to win. I knew that, so because they defeated the Buffalo Bills, who I did want to be in the Super Bowl, but they were not. But to see, so the game just became this huge blowout. But I stayed and just watched for the commercials. So. Yeah.
Which is what most people do anyway.
Is that true? I don't even know. I think there are some people like the Eagles fans out there. My brother's a big Chiefs fan, so my daughter who just moved to Charlotte was over his house because my brother, I don't know, Bobby, I'm talking. My brother is a judge in Charlotte, North Carolina area. So Bobby's probably spent some time in front of him. So anyway, so my brother's a huge Chiefs fan, and my daughter was there, and I was texting her saying, "Listen, just give him some more chicken wings and get out of there as quick as you can," because that somebody called the police. Man, there was a murder that took place in that stadium. It was crazy.
Man, oh man.
Because I think weren't the Chiefs favored?
Oh, of course. I think so. I mean, they won two or three.
But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just wanted the Eagles to win because they were tired of seeing the Chiefs winning, and they were tired of seeing Taylor Swift on the Jumbotron and everything.
That's true. I forgot the Taylor Swift connection. So, yeah, that's right. No one heard of the Chiefs till Taylor Swift put them on the map, right? Isn't that a...
She's on the payroll.
Well, I just wanted the Bills to win. We lived in Buffalo. I don't know if I ever told you my journey, but, Don and I went to the inner city of Buffalo, New York to plant a church at 21 years of age. And the 5 years we lived in Buffalo, 5 or 6, the Bills went to the Super Bowl 4 times. Now,
nice.
They never won, but we won't talk about that. So I was really hoping the big Josh Allen. Anyway, who knew we were talking like, didn't you buy the ESPN station so people could be tuning in thinking this is sports? Isn't your AM?
AM 1110 used to be a sports station.
Used to be ESPN.
Affiliated with ESPN.
Yes. So if you're listening, this is Sports Talk, 1110.
And we talk about the Angels a lot.
The Angels?
Well played.
Well played.
Yes. Yeah. All right, 888-564-6173. Let's go right to the phones. We'll maybe get to some of our Facebook questions in a little bit, but we'll start with Johnny, who's calling in from Tustin, California, listening on FM 107.9, and he's got a question specifically for Ed.
Oh.
So let's hear it. Johnny, thanks for calling in today.
Hey guys. Ed, I had a question for you because you gave a message over at Mariners about tithing.
Yeah.
So I just had a question about that. Now, I just want to preface this by saying I have no problem with tithing.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure I'm doing it correctly, I guess. I work a fully commissioned job.
Yeah.
So month to month can, 1 month will be excellent, 1 month will be absolutely terrible. So I wanted to know, for every commission I close, am I supposed to be taking 10% of that commission and saying, all right, I'm giving that, for each commission I close during the week, or is it at the end of the month I can put together exactly what I've made, take the tithe from that and give it? Now, the question for that is, I have a friend of mine who works the same job as me, and he says I'm not trusting God enough if I don't just automatically assume I'm going to make a lot of money one month and tithe from that. But to me, I don't know.
Dude, that friend of yours is pretty savage to say you're not trusted the Lord enough. So.
I know, and it's tough because it's like, for me, it's like, well, just say I close 10 commissions in a week. I'm tallying. Okay, well, I made this much. Let me do my X amount that I tithe. Okay, there's that, there's this, there's that, and then I tithe every week. But to him, it's him saying like, well, no, like in this job we can make a lot of money, so you should just be assuming you're going to make that and then tithe as if you had it. And I don't think that's right, but it's God's first.
Yeah, sure.
To make sure like maybe I'm doing the right thing.
Well, I just think it's cool that you called in after the message too. I think it's the first time someone heard a message, and I'm also very pleased you didn't mention Cheez-Its. That's kind of what I expected when you said the message was.
Yeah, let's talk about Cheez-Its and Doritos.
Because no, I did this whole thing. I had this whole illustration about Cheez-Its, but
the unveiling you did that set me and my friends off. We thought that was hilarious.
Good. That's right. But here's the thing. I just hope people remember, like I don't want people just to remember the illustration. I want them to remember, like, don't make your stuff your idol. But anyway, it's close enough to that. But
Johnny got something out of it. So that's
10 years from now, all the people are going to remember is the Cheez-It illustration. Yeah. But anyway, so and Brian, I don't see our board here. So
yeah, I don't know why.
You don't know what happened?
No, I'll figure that out because I've got something else I'm trying to figure out.
What was your name
Johnny.
again? Johnny. Okay, Johnny. Johnny, super question. So here's kind of when we look to the pages of the New Testament, as I said in the message, tithing is commanded in the Old Testament, it's commended in the New Testament. But the thing I focused on, as you probably remember, is generosity and proportionality. And so generosity is, you have this job, you've been blessed, you have the opportunity to give and to bless others through your giving. And so then you typically, proportionality, we looked at that passage that says, set a portion each week. So what I would say is that that when Paul wrote that to the Corinthians, to set aside a proportion each week so that there might be no collection when I come, I think that we weren't generally working where people would receive commissions, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't want you to feel, maybe I can free you from this. I don't want you to feel some sort of legalistic burden. So if at the end of the day, you say, I want to tithe. Let's say that's what you feel the Lord press on your heart. You want to tithe. I think it's perfectly fine to say, I'm going to give this amount each week, and maybe it's a set amount each week. And if I have a big week, I have a small week, and I might then say, for a lot of people, you probably heard Eric, our pastor, say that we get a big portion of our giving in December. And I'm guessing, Brian, it's not December. Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa as well. And that's very common. And part of the reason is a lot of Christians who say, I've been given through the week, and let's say I want to tithe, I want to proportionally give at 10%, and they get to the end of the year and say, okay, I'm looking at my numbers, and I want to write a check to bring that to the place where I tithe for the year. So I would say, man, Johnny, it's your heart. It sounds to me like your heart's in the right place. If you mentioned, should I do it at the end of the month or give a tenth of each check? I think the Lord would be completely honored, and the Lord would be glorified, and I think it would be fine for you to say, I'm just going to look at where I am monthly, and I'm going to give monthly, proportionally monthly. And if you want to look at the end of the year where you are and decide accordingly as well, I think all that's fine. I think maybe your friend got this from that 1 Corinthians passage that says each week to set aside. Well, I got to tell you, I don't give weekly. I give monthly. I give electronically, and so I just have a certain amount that comes out of my account and goes. I give to Mariners Church, and I do it monthly. So I would say it's perfectly fine to do it monthly, to look at where your income is. Don't feel a legalistic burden. I just appreciate your heart and desire to give.
For sure, Bobby. Any thoughts on tithing?
No, I'm in and out a little bit, trying to work with you on behind the scenes.
What is going on here?
Yeah, but I think I've got it.
Okay, good. Let's hope so. Johnny, does this answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Because that's the whole legalistic thing that you mentioned. Yeah, it's like my heart's there. Like, I don't mind giving more one month or giving the same amount. It's just, I don't want someone else telling me that I'm doing something wrong, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little strange. You tell your friend that Ed Stetzer said, back off. So, no, I'm just kidding. It's fine. It's fine. But I think that probably he or she gets that from that passage in 1 Corinthians. And I used to, I'll tell you just transparently, like, I was a resistor to electronic giving. I'm like, no, I want to come to church, with a check. People my daughters are like, now what's a check? Is it, I want to come to church with a check, and I want to put it in an offering plate as a sign of worship, and I want to do it weekly. So I think at the end of the day, I was too driven by the weekly thing. Paul's point there is proportionality and generosity. And I think that can be expressed in a whole lot of different ways. Thanks for your call, Johnny. I appreciate it. By the way, others can call at 888-564-6173. That's 888-564-6173. Maybe if you other people from Mariners Church. Eric's now on K-Wave. What is his time slot? Do you remember?
He's on 2 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Oh, you're kidding. So that's just before us?
Almost before us.
Okay,
yeah.
There's someone between us.
J.D. Greer is right between.
J.D. Greer.
Yes.
I never liked him. I'm kidding. Those who don't know, I'm the one who introduced J.D. Greer to the K-Wave leadership.
And we are so thankful for that.
And that's great. So he is on right before.
Yeah, Eric's on at 2, J.D. at 2:30, and then Pastor's Perspective at 3 o'clock.
That is a powerhouse block.
Tell me about it, especially on Wednesdays when Ed Stetzer is here.
Oh, yeah, we love it.
Yep, 888-564-6173. Just a really quick comment I want to make about tithing with a check. I stopped doing that years ago because I wrote a check to a church, the same church I go to now, and they didn't cash it right away. And so by the time they deposited the check, I guess I was not managing my money very well at the time. So the check to my church bounced.
Oh,
how bad is that?
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
So after that, the church said, no, you can only give us cash. So that's how I do it.
That's so funny. Well, as a pastor, I've had, back in the day, people give checks in the bounce, and it's always like, what do you do? Like, do you call them and tell them? Like, do you tell them, well, you got to pay us the $20, bounce fee? Of course, we didn't, but that's always awkward. So, yeah. But again, I think electronic giving has really freed a lot of that up. But again, for me, I had to be okay with that. For me, ultimately comes down to, and this is sort of my theme at Mariners, was generosity and proportionality.
For sure. 888-564-6173 is our number. And now we'll talk to Mary in Cerritos, California. Hello, Mary. Thanks for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi, pastors. How are you guys doing?
Good, thank you.
Okay, great. My question is, I was reading the Bible the other day, and I was noticing that I know that Mary, Jesus' mother, was a young girl when she, was pregnant with Jesus. Now, I noticed that, when they were at the wedding and when Mary told Jesus, about the baby without a wine, I noticed that a lot of times they don't talk about Joseph, the husband. And he just kind of fade away. I don't know if when he passed away or when, but I noticed they said that he was an old man. Now, I wanted to know that, was he a lot older than Mary? Because I know back in those days, maybe that was okay, but I know she was young, but was he like an older guy?
Do we know, Bobby?
No, I mean, I don't even know that we know that it says he was an old man. We don't know his age, and he does kind of go out of the pocket, which has led people to believe that most likely he passed away. But I don't know anything about how old he was at all. The Bible isn't clear on that for us.
What do you guys teach at the Talbot School of Theology, Ed?
What we teach, everything Bobby says, always. And so, so
smart.
So he, we don't know. I guess church tradition, kind of says that he maybe died. But he definitely disappears from the scene. So in the first century, women were typically, when they married in their, when they got betrothed, were in maybe mid-teens. And then their future husbands tended to be a few years older, but not like super older, not like we see some of these, cult things around the world that make such controversy. But so probably he was somewhat older. The life expectancy, I don't actually know off the top of my head. I'm going to Google this. What is the life expectancy in 0 AD? And I don't know. I'd like to know, because it was a lot shorter. Life expectancy in the first century's AD was around 22 to 35 years.
Man.
And that part of that's a high infant mortality. But you do see people die a lot young. We didn't have, and so my guess is Joseph went on to be with the Lord and kind of vanished from the scene. Now, anti-Christian people have said that, that this is proof that something nefarious is up. No, people just die, and it's not an uncommon thing.
Does this help you, Mary?
Yes, it does. Yes, I was just wondering. I figure if anyone would know, you guys would, give me a clarity on that. Okay, it was just a question. I was just reading and just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, there's this weird tradition that Joseph was 90 and Mary was like 11 or 12, and that's not anywhere attested to in the Bible. But if you Google that, you'll find that. But and nothing like that in the Bible. And I think that has to do more with some other customs and religions in the Middle East than historic Christianity.
And look at this. We just got finished talking to Mary. Now here's Joseph.
No way.
Yes.
No way.
Joseph in Orange, California, listening on the K-Wave app. This is amazing.
That's great.
Hi there, Joseph. Welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you, Pastor?
By the way, we didn't plan this, in case anybody's wondering.
It is pretty awesome.
It's not a setup.
And if the next person calls is Jesus, the work is done.
Jesus, call in. 888-564-6173. So what's up, Joseph?
Okay. So just a quick question. From my observations, in life, I got curious with a question. Does God have a recipe for success? So from people I talk to influencers you see online, to people in the Bible, it is always a struggle or a trial in the beginning, which led them to be successful people in life, financially or position-wise, or whatever the case may be. I hear and I see that in the Bible and outside the Bible. So I was just curious, is that God's recipe for success, or what exactly?
Okay, Bobby Conway, what do you say about that?
I mean, I think that there's some general principles that can lead us toward a more successful and abundant life, but that doesn't mean it'll be bereft of trials and absent of them. So I think when it comes to the way that we look at patterns, you can see sometimes that, during a crisis, there's an opportunity to look under the hood and regain some wisdom and learn. But to write a book and say, this is the flow always. The prayer of Jabez that was written by Bruce Wilkinson, this was just a massive seller. And then he went off to Africa and just ended up in a real difficult season of his life. And so I know that Bruce would have known at the heart of things that life isn't always predictable, but many people think, expand my territory, Lord, and just would pray this prayer and life would work out a certain way. Or you think about your best life now, there's just trials in life, and you can do all that there's situations where the Bible, people are baffled. Why do the unrighteous seem to prosper and the godly seem to just suffer? Mm-hmm. Well, I think that you can see some of that, but it would be a fool's errand to try to make a complete recipe. I think that the blessing is walking in faithfulness and walking according to God's word and trusting him where the chips fall. And that's a lot easier to say than to live out.
Yeah, I think the closest thing that we would come to some sort of pattern, Joseph, is again, I wouldn't, I thought that was helpful, the prayer of Jabez reference and what, kind of the journey that Bruce went on. The closest thing we have to a pattern for success for life in the Bible is the book of Proverbs. And the book of Proverbs is a series of proverbial truths. They're not promises, they're proverbs, that these things are generally true. And I would say if you live according to the book of Proverbs, which talks about things like working hard and talks about things about having integrity and making good choices, that kind of life tends to more often than not produce success. But it doesn't mean always the case. There are people who love Jesus, who lived according to the Proverbs, and just have walked in some very difficult times and circumstances. So what I would say is, I don't think there are discernible supernatural patterns of success, contrary to what you see from many self-help Christian books. But again, those book of Proverbs, man, reading a proverb a day, and that'll help you to say, these are the kind, if I live the kind of life that the writers of Proverbs lay out, I think the likelihood is I'm going to experience some of the success that comes from wise choices and good decisions.
Yeah.
For sure. And here's a word we don't like to use often in Christian circles, luck. Does luck have anything to do with things of that nature? Bobby, what do you think?
I do think we're adverse to the term luck because luck is more like just this, accident that you fall into. I don't have a problem with someone said, "Oh man, you got lucky." I mean, you just kind of
You don't like correct them and say, "No, that's the providence of God."
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe we call that what Jesus juking at.
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
like to do that. I think I can live with that and not have to correct that. Correct. But the providence of God, I do think, is amazing. I mean, I love the book of Ruth and how, just you see the providence of God all over that book. It is really neat. And, I've seen that in my own life as I'm sure all Christians have, and that's pretty special. But when you refer to luck, I think that's keeping God out of the picture, and he's operating in our life, and we can be thankful for that. Now, someone might say, oh, well, you got lucky when you won the lottery, or was that God's providence that allowed you to win the lottery? And, I don't know. I'm not one of those. I don't play the lottery. I probably bought 4 or 5 lottery tickets in my life.
Sinner.
So if I wanted to buy a lottery ticket, I don't feel bad about it. It's not a problem in my life. And I wouldn't feel bad keeping $1 billion if I won it either, because I feel like I can do a lot. Like a Christian that wins that kind of money can do a lot better with it if they use it for the kingdom than other ways. But some people go, oh, well, it's just tainted money. But I don't know. What do you call that, Ed? If you win the lottery, was that luck, providence? Were you cursed?
I just say the devil's had that money long enough, Bobby. But I just want to say, regardless of what you've just heard from Bobby, who's encouraging you appears to buy lottery tickets, do not gamble. The lottery is a tax on the poor. You don't win. Everybody loses except that one person, and they win so much money that everyone hates them anyway. So
there's truth to that.
Don't listen to Bobby. Don't play the lottery.
But it's good to know that if Bobby does win the lottery, he's going to make a huge donation to Biola University, and we'll have the Bobby Conway School of
Apologetics.
Yes,
we'd
perfect.
call it for that. The Tim
Let's do
Conway's son would be great. So, and back to Joseph. So Joseph's question earlier. So, Bobby, if you were to win the lottery, we'd expect you to tithe at that time, not at the end of the year, not at the end of the month, but that week. We'd expect you to write a check on that amount.
Yes, indeed.
Next time I'm in California, Ed, you and we can go to the local gas station and go halves on a lottery ticket.
Do you really? Like, I want to know right now. Right? You said you bought 4 or 5 lottery tickets.
In his lifetime. In his lifetime.
In my lifetime.
How long ago? Like, it's like Sunday? Like, say yesterday?
Yeah. Oh, I just know the odds are so bad against me, and it would require luck to win it, because I'm not sure God's providence is going to, honestly, $300 million, $400 million. I mean, number one, it would be fun to give a bunch of money away. And it would also be fun to, I don't know, it would be fun to check out some parts of the world and do some.
It would be funner to not spend money on the lottery. Don't gamble. Gamble's bad.
Yeah. Well, I probably spent $5.
No, there's no bad. How much sin do you have to commit to be a sinner, Bobby?
So did Jesus die on a cross for my $5 for the lottery tickets? Is what you're saying? Okay.
To be clear, I'm not saying that buying a lottery ticket is a sin. I am saying it's unwise. It's a tax on the poor. Poor people disproportionately buy lottery tickets, and it hurts them more.
Yep.
Anyway.
It
is true, though. I know we're not meaning to talk about lottery, but
we are now. We're all in now.
Well, I do think what Ed's saying is true. I mean, like when people talk about the lottery, that is, I mean, is it worth what it does to the poor and for those with addiction, for the sake of the 2 people that are going to win it in a year?
And they try to sell it like the government's like, oh, and it goes to education. No, it goes to education because you're underfunding education. And so don't like create a lottery and tax poor people to send to do educational credits. Let's fund education well. Anyway, now you got me preaching. You can tell I'm not a big fan of the lottery, and we're going to talk, Bobby. You and I are going to have a conversation about your habits. All this 5 lottery tickets you bought yesterday.
Hey, there's a lot more corruption in his heart than the $5 that I spent on lottery tickets.
And you guys definitely need to talk.
Yeah, I love it.
Ed Stetzer, looks like you got your wish. We spoke to Mary. We spoke to Joseph.
way.
And
Jesus.
now here's Jesus. Now, is that really your name, or did you just call and say your name was Jesus just so you could get on the program?
What's happening?
Are you there, Jesus?
So that's really my name.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for calling.
You sound very far away, Jesus. Maybe you're on a speakerphone or a microphone, but come closer.
We just need Gabriel to call in next.
Now, the gauntlet's been thrown down.
That's right.
Jesus, go ahead. What's your question?
I'm just driving through a very bad part of my perception.
Yes, we can tell. It is pretty bad. But
And if there's anybody we would want to hear from, but more than Mary and Joseph, it is Jesus.
Yes.
And so yet here we go. We're having a bad
he's got
reception.
bad cell coverage.
I wonder if we
That's
could talk
horrible.
to Mary, who could get a message to Jesus.
No, we can't do that.
That's right. We're Protestants. We're Protestants. Sorry.
Jesus, let's try again. Are you?
Yeah. I just wanted to give thanks, guys, for the program. Right. So fairly new listener, and I listened on my way home, commuting through traffic here in California, and really just wanted to give thanks for all the information that you guys put out there.
That's cool.
Keeps it fresh in the mind.
Thanks, bro.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
We so appreciate you calling Jesus here on Pastor's Perspective. And if Jesus calls Pastor's Perspective, you can call Pastor's Perspective too. 888-564-6173 is the number to call.
Story. So I was ordering Uber once, and my favorite thing is, it says, Jesus is 10 minutes away. And then Jesus is 5 minutes away. And then Jesus has arrived. And so I actually did screenshots of that, and I shared it at Moody Church.
Yes.
And I said, you got to be ready. Jesus could come back at any moment.
Yes.
So I love that.
But it's great that you got a 10-minute warning.
I did.
I mean,
exactly.
the rest of us are not going to get that
Exactly.
warning.
The trumpet's going to sound.
Yes, it is.
Christ will
Yes,
rise.
it is. He is here. All right, 888-564-6173 is the number to call us today. We're going to be here for another 30 minutes. You can call in and ask your questions. We've got author and apologist Dr. Bobby Conway from Image Church in Charlotte, North Carolina here. Also, Dr. Ed Stetzer, the Dean of the Talbot School of Theology at Biola University. Find out more at biola.edu. 888-564-6173 is our number. Give us a call. we're back on Pastor's Perspective. I'm Brian Perez. 888-564-6173 is the number to call. 888-564-6173. You can also get us your question by sending it on Facebook Messenger on the Pastor's Perspective page, or you can DM us on the Pastor's Perspective Instagram. You can also go to kwave.com, look for the Pastor's Perspective page, fill out the form. That gets your question to us. Or you can text me. My phone number is 714. I'm joking. I'm not giving out my phone number.
I'll give you your phone number. You know, I don't even have your cell number. I was trying to email you before when you ignored me for all those hours when I emailed you.
Hours, yes.
I don't have your cell number.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, well, I'm going to share it online. I'm going to share it. 888. Okay, this is not a cell number, but you can call 888-564-6173.
Yes. That being said, my friend / coworker Ron sent me a message, texted me. Can you ask Ed or Bobby about the He Gets Us organization? I heard Ed mention it briefly. I've heard controversy about it. Ed, He Gets Us.
Well, let's have Bobby first, because I'll give you my opinion, but let's have Bobby first, because he's the more godly one.
Yeah.
Aside from that gambling problem.
Aside from that gambling problem,
Yes.
exactly. Maybe I should go first.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I remember hearing about the campaign a while ago, but wasn't it something like the controversy around, well, do we get him? But I'll let Ed share, because it sounds like he might be a little bit more.
Oh, well played.
I don't pay much attention to it.
Yeah, so Super Bowl ad was this year. Now, again, the He Gets Us campaign, I mean, you can Google and learn all I'm about to tell you. The He Gets Us campaign has actually been there's been a change in leadership from last year, and a foundation called the Come Near Foundation is now, He Gets Us as one of the campaigns of the Come Near Foundation. And they're running some ads on, Super Bowl is the big ad, but everyone's sort of because it's Super Bowl, such a big stage, everyone's like, oh, that's the He Gets Us campaign. It's actually lots of other things going on as well. So the idea of the ad campaign has been to run ads that facilitate conversations about Jesus, particularly kind of explaining the human side of Jesus. He's fully God, he's fully man. They actually say that they believe that on the website, that he's fully God, he's fully man. But the ad campaign is like, all right, this is Jesus. You can understand, he understands you, you can understand more of him. And then the desire is people go to the website, hegetsus.com, and learn more about Jesus. And so I actually tweeted about this because if you go and you go to the website, you'll actually go there and you'll see the Bible Project videos that tell the whole story of redemption, from what's the Bible to atonement and sacrifice and all of those things. So I think, I think some people would like to have the ads be more explicit in that, here's the full gospel, here's what this means. Kind of hard to do in a 30-second or 1-minute spot. Yeah. For me, I really appreciate it. Here's what I wrote. I said, I hope you will join me. I posted this right after the ad ran. I hope you'll join me in praying that non-Christians who just saw that He Gets Us ad will explore more about true greatness. The ad was about what's true greatness, and learn about the authentic Jesus, quote, who did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many, unquote. That's Mark chapter 10, verse 45. And then I said, thanks, praying friends. Pray also that those who go to the He Gets Us website will click on the Bible Project videos, which include the series of videos around the theme, a unified story that leads to Jesus. I want people to understand who Jesus is, what it means that he lived a sinless life, he died on the cross, God raised him from the dead on the third day, and he is the one who said, I am the way, the truth, life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So it's a I think the ads are intended to be a conversation starter that Christians should pick up. And I've heard a lot of people say, it was the talk of Monday morning water coolers, and that's your opportunity as a Christian to say, how am I going to share the gospel with my neighbor who might have questions after a Super Bowl ad? Because Super Bowl ads are not the greatest gospel transmission vehicles. Neighbors who love Jesus, who tell their neighbors about Jesus, are the ones who need to pick up that conversation after a small, short ad.
Yeah, and to think the conversations that could have started and probably did start. Maybe you listening or watching right now, you did get a chance to talk to a coworker, because the next day, of course, at work, for the people who didn't call in sick, air quotes there, hey, did you watch the game last night? Yes, I did. What'd you think? Blah, blah, blah. What did you think of the Doritos commercial? Whatever. And then, well, what did you think of the He Gets Us commercial? And then there's that open door.
Yep. And I hope people take that. I think at the end of the day, the people who have given money to this. These are not cheap ads.
Right.
They have a desire for people to have conversations about who the authentic Jesus is, and I think that's an important thing for us to engage in. But Bobby, did you not watch the Super Bowl? Were you out buying lottery tickets, or what's the deal?
No, I mean, I watched it, but I don't pay much attention. I like to the commercials. I remember reading about he gets his ads last year, but I haven't even seen any stuff come across this year. I wasn't all that excited about the Super Bowl the way it went down this year. Just in general, it was found it flat. It wasn't an exciting game, but yeah, even when the commercials come on, I don't pay any attention to that.
That is so. This is what gambling does. It blinds you.
Yes.
So did you I think what was the number one rated ad? The one from Seal, "Kiss from a Lime" or something.
I did see that one. No,
I was like, I don't know. And then I got to tell you, I'm partial to any ad that gets people talking about Jesus, but that whole was it Rocket? "Take Me Home, Country Road," where they had the commercial, and then they were singing it in the stadium. It felt like this one moment when we were sort of all together, and that was super, super cool. The halftime show, I needed explanation. I had so many questions.
Yes, me too. I didn't get that.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah, I was like, but now I was actually had a pastor today explain to me a few things. Like, oh, okay. But then Lauren Daigle singing beforehand. It was kind of. There was a lot of interesting stuff. But again, who cares? It's the Chiefs and the Eagles. It's not the Bills.
Well, the thing though, that was funny though, was seeing Seal with his head on that seal. That was hilarious.
But it's just so creative. I mean, these creative ads, it's wild. And people, when you spend millions of dollars, you gotta. And it was interesting, the Bud Light ad, because Bud Light had quite a year because of the boycotts and them being seen as being woke or whatever it may be, and so they went the whole opposite direction. And they're trying to reestablish themselves, and I guess people are still boycotting Bud Light. I've been boycotting Bud Light my whole life.
Me too.
So as a non-drinker, it's easy. But anyway,
yes, for sure. 888-564-6173 is our number. Let's talk to Jose in Los Angeles. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, Jose.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. Can you hear me clear?
Oh, very.
Oh, all right. Good. I just arrived home safely and driving through this rain.
Great. So happy to hear that.
All righty. Man, my question is, the more I'm starting to read the scripts, I realize that the word Lord in the Old Testament is all capitals, and in the New Testament it changed, and the word Lord the L is the only capital that's being used. Is there a reason that it was changed that way?
Bobby Conway?
That's a super question.
It is.
But Bobby's going to give it all away. But can I just say, Bobby, first, that Bobby's going to give you a brilliant answer, and I'm glad you called. but I want you to also know that Bobby, even though he's got a PhD from a fancy school in England, that the answer to this question is actually also in the beginning of your Bible in the front matter, because this is not take a super special knowledge, but most people don't know this. But Bobby, tell us why.
Yeah, well, I do think it's really neat to see that distinction, and it's helpful. It's a way. The capital LORD refers to God's covenant name, Yahweh, and then when you see a capital LORD, that would be the Hebrew word Adonai, and then you would see the word God would be Elohim. So there's different names that are used to describe the God, and if it's a lowercase l and then Lord, then that would be kind of like, hey, my Lord, but it's not a God. But if it's capital L, it's referring to God as Adonai. And there's lots of ways that there are titles, but his unique, divine, self-revealed name is Yahweh, as seen in the book of Exodus chapter 3. So when you see that, that's like the main name right there. I mean, this is like the sacred name of God, but the Bible refers to him, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Nisi. It gives different ways of giving titles for us to understand his greatness.
Does that help you, Jose?
Oh, yeah, it definitely does.
I don't think we answered the part about the New Testament. Bobby, did you address why it's not the same way in the New Testament?
No, I didn't. Go for it.
Okay, so it's not the sacred name, if you will. It's not Yahweh in the New Testament. It's just Kyrios. It's just Lord. So that's just literally a translation from the Greek. But again, the Old Testament little different in its language because you're translating Hebrew name words, and so when you see capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, that's Yahweh. Capital L, smaller letters, O-R-D, that's generally Adonai, and very, very, but again, something that the translators it's just we don't usually, who reads the front matter of their Bible? But it's in the front matter of your Bible as well.
Right. And it's so true. You could open that up and get familiar with the different abbreviations and some of the things that you're going to see, and that can help. We were talking on the radio yesterday, and one of the statements that a lady called up was like, I'm not doubting God. I'm just doubting my ability to kind of understand the Word of God.
Yeah.
And, I basically said, not in a sacrilegious way, but perhaps stopping reading the Bible and taking a little bit of time, maybe if it's even a week, to learn how to read the Bible. And because you want to read the Bible, but you want to read it effectively. You want to know how to read the Bible. And so what we often do in a church is people show up to church and we say, you got to get in the Word, but we don't teach them how to read the Word. And I said, that's kind of equivalent to showing up going, I want to be a carpenter, and then just showing up and slapping on a carpenter's belt and expecting to know how to read blueprints and architectural plans and knowing how to use your tools. It would seem wise to take a little bit of time, not that you don't believe in reading the Bible, not that you don't believe in getting to building the house, but you're going to build a much more effective house if you understand how to read blueprints, architectural plans, if you understand the different tools, if you understand proper form when using a hammer, and that's crucial. And so even reading the Bible, there's some passages that are much more, you read James, it's very self-explanatory, right? Like that's like using a screwdriver. But then there are certain parts, like you get into Ezekiel, that's like using a chainsaw, exercise caution. If you just jump right in with a chainsaw, you might cause some damage to yourself in the process and get confused. So I do think that the local church needs to do a better job of teaching people how to read the Bible.
Jose, thank you for calling in today with your question here on Pastor's Perspective. Here's one that was sent in on the Pastor's Perspective Facebook page. Oh, no, this one was sent in online at kwave.com using the Pastor's Perspective form. I haven't read any of these yet, so let me do one really quick. This one's from Kimberly. I'm currently listening to Pastor Raul Reese teach on 1 Corinthians 5, 9 through 11, and it really made me think. Kimberly says, I've noticed that my church allows people who are obviously living in fornication to serve and remain in fellowship. I say obviously because the relationship is years long. There was one time where I was gently questioning a young woman who served in many areas of our church about her situation with her boyfriend, and a leader's wife was part of the conversation too. This young lady had been with her boyfriend for 4 years at this point. I mentioned 1 Corinthians 7:9. The leader's wife chuckled nervously, and the young woman chuckled in agreement with the leader's wife and responded, yes, but we're not living in lust. And they both kind of just brushed it off. I noticed that I get a lot of this kind of reaction from the busy churches. By busy, Kimberly means they're busy growing the size and ministries of the church, so it seems like they put any new believer in a position that needs to be filled, excluding a leadership position, of course. But my question, says Kimberly, is how can my church, a Bible-teaching Calvary Chapel, be like this? I believe God's word would not have us allow such a thing. Please help me understand. Thank you. Now, really quick, I just want to clarify. Kimberly says she goes to a Calvary Chapel. She also mentioned that she's listening to Raul Reese. I
don't think she goes to that Calvary Chapel.
I don't think she goes to that Calvary Chapel, and that Calvary Chapel is allowing this to happen.
Let's call out Raul Reese right now. He's on our station, but let's call him out right now.
Raul would definitely not allow this.
I just want to share her concern because, I know some pastors, Calvary Chapel Connecticut pastors, who are buying lottery tickets. It's madness out there. It's madness out there. Yeah, so it's a good question. Part of this, too, is predicated on an important conversation about the value of church membership, which, again, Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa doesn't have, my church doesn't have, but it does have community. And there's a type of community that's a deeper type of community called covenant community. And in covenant community, which in most churches is expressed through membership, you're basically saying we're in this together. We're going to hold each other accountable. And just to be transparent, people who are living in open sin, whatever that sin might be, but open sin that they're not repenting of or not seeking to repent of, I don't think should serve in leadership roles in a local church. Now, here's the thing. I don't know enough what's going on here in this church that she's talking about. I think I'm getting the impression that she's talking about her Calvary Chapel.
Yes.
Right. And we don't know which Calvary Chapel it is. Maybe it's Costa Mesa. I don't know.
Never.
But here's what I would say. I think that here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Like, do you let non-Christians help in certain things? Do you let non-Christians play in the band? In a church, do you let non-Christians, could they help on serve day on Saturday when you're serving in the community? And what's kind of the line? What's the difference between serve day, where you're, maybe moving trash out of somebody's yard, and playing guitar on the worship team where you're not speaking or leading worship, but you're moving your hand to the strings? Well, for me, I actually wouldn't have somebody who's not a Christian or who's living in kind of open sin to be on the stage. But I would invite them to join us in community, friendship. But when a church has membership, you're actually saying, I'm a part of this church, and part of being a member of a church is actually to acknowledge that you are under the leadership of that church, or under the covenant community that's there. And so that's why I think it's important that passage, which most churches do not do. So most churches do not do what 1 Corinthians 5 says. 1 Corinthians 5 verse 9 says, I wrote you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people, not meaning all the people in the world who are immoral, greedy, swindlers, idolaters. You'd have to leave this world. But you must not associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or sister, but is those things. Don't even eat with such people. And I would say you look at Jesus in Matthew, who says, go to the person. If they don't listen, bring somebody with you. If they don't listen, tell it to the church. And the implication is that person would be removed in some way from the covenant fellowship of the life of the church. So her comment about, I guess churches focus on growing. I don't know. Mariners Church is focused on growing. But we also hold to certain standards of what it would be for you to be involved in the leadership of the life of the church, and we hold each other accountable for that. I'm guessing Calvary Church Costa Mesa does that. I'm guessing Bobby's church does that as well. So, but here's the thing. This is where I'm always a little bit like, I don't know what's going on, but I'd be really surprised if there was a Calvary Chapel. There's a lot of 2,000 Calvary Chapels around the world. Mm-hmm. But I'd be really surprised if somebody was living in, say, open, unrepentant sin, that they'd be in a leadership position. But man, if they were helping out with something, and that's a way to help them connect, that's often a pathway into the covenant community that they're not yet part of. So it's a gray area, is how much can a person who either doesn't know the Lord, or is not walking in right fellowship with the Lord, how much can we say, hey, come join hands with us and let's do some things together. And in the process of doing some things together, you can reconsider your faith commitment or your current life situation. Bobby, what would you say?
Well, I think everything you said there was great, Ed. It is tough. I think you've got to uphold this. It's part of the leadership way of just helping shepherd people. And it's not that you're wanting to be moral policemen, because we're all capable of it. Take heed when you think you're strong, lest you fall. But it's just making sure that we keep the flock unified, healthy, that we don't let just sin just grow and minimize it. That we realize a price was paid for us to have the kind of community that God desires for us to have. And sure, there's a big difference too when somebody, they slip up or they mess up and they just like, oh man, and they're just broken about it, versus the person that just, and then sometimes you get like maybe a new believer and they're just clueless about certain things, and they just need a conversation to help them in their growth. And then you get some people, they just don't see it as a problem. And then that becomes a difficult situation sometimes to navigate your way through. And so I do think as church leaders, we have to make sure that we figure out a way to properly shepherd the people. And shepherding people, there's encouragement, but there's also exhortation challenge and call up. I mean, I've had to have a particular couple wanted to serve in our children's ministries. They're living together. They have a wedding date for May. And I had our executive pastor say, hey, they want to serve in the children's ministries, but they are planning to get married, but they are living together. What are your thoughts? And so I said, well, let me ask you what your thoughts are first. And I'd kind of listened to him, and I said, I think, number one, it's great that they want to serve. It's great that they're planning to get married, assuming that this is, what they're supposed to do. But I said, it's possible that there are some people that could end up in a financially difficult situation. Two people, they're brutal financial situation, and they make this, what I'd say, kind of an unwise choice to live together, but they're living in separate rooms. So it doesn't have the perception of being handled right, but they're actually trying to handle it right. They just felt like financially it made sense given that they're moving toward that. I said, I can see how if that's the situation and they're getting married and they want to serve, well, I wouldn't think that's the best approach living together, but if they are kind of in separate rooms, then, I can understand, maybe you let them engage and serve and teach. If they are in a situation where they're acting like they're married in the sense of, consummating it and everything else, then I said, then I don't think them teaching in children's ministries is a good move at this point. And so I said, why don't we just start with a conversation with them, see where they are. And, I'm looking forward to a follow-up on that. But there are different nuances that people will have as it relates to some of this stuff. And I don't always think there is a one-size-fits-all. Like, I could imagine a situation that somebody could share where, they are living upstanding, but maybe the circumstances were just so brutal, and maybe it's not the wisest choice from my perspective, but given where they are in their journey, it felt like the wisest choice for them to live in separate rooms while they wait. Kind of like I had our son was getting married to his wife now, but she was living at our house. Right. And we let her stay here, but she was in another room. Well, some would say, oh, they have the same address. Well, yeah, but mom and dad were there, and we knew that they were headed in the right direction. So they were also serving in the church, but they were totally living for the Lord. So these are the type of situations sometimes where it's not always as clean, and it requires further investigation.
Yeah. Have you, when she was living there, did you guys go buy lottery tickets together?
We did. We were hoping that we could win so that we could allow them to be able to buy a house, right when they got married.
I figured it was something like that.
Ed is such a gambler. We're hoping, since we didn't win, that he'll cash out and bless you guys.
Let's be honest, Brian. I do make this more entertaining. Whether or not we get to more biblical truth or not, but
for sure. And we're also happy to hear that Bobby's not gambling on the Super Bowl, since we were talking a lot about the Super Bowl. He's not, betting on that.
For all my problems, I got to say, as much as I've never been roasted so hard for a $5 cent in my life.
That's right.
But gambling is, I'm glad to say, not my big problem. There are other
you got other sins. I'm with you, bro.
You can redeem yourself, Bobby. Send a $5 donation to Biola University, and that might just cancel it out. I don't know. Ron in Prescott, Arizona. How can we help you?
Pastors, why didn't the Lord commission Paul to write a systematic theology?
I think I want to know the same answer.
Okay, Bobby?
Yeah.
That would make my life a lot easier.
Yeah, that's for sure. Any thoughts, guys?
Well, Ed, I'd love to hear Ed's thoughts. I mean, I know theology is his.
Yeah, so I think that, Paul's letters are written to specific churches addressing specific situations. They're missionary documents written to new churches about how to correct certain things. So by definition, a systematic theology is a systemization of the theological principles that are written in the Word of God, actually to disparate situations that we then put together systematically to kind of lay out, these are the doctrines that we see. But we are, in order to put together a systematic theology, we are walking through the texts, which we believe are inerrant and inspired, but we're looking and saying, what do we see in Hebrews? What do we see in Paul's writings? What do we see in Luke's writings? And the end result is we systematize them into a systematic theology that lays it all out. I think it's it's a good question. I think we would have, if one of the inspired scripture writers had written a systematic theology, we'd probably have less denominations and less confusion. But God chose to reveal his word in missionary letters to missionary situations, the epistles or the biographies of Jesus or the Acts of the Apostles, and we systematize that by we build a theological description like Wayne Grudem's systematic theology or lots of others that are out there. That was the first one I probably really dug into.
Ron, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective, and thank you for listening to us on kwave.com in Prescott, Arizona. We are out of time on today's episode, but guess what? We'll be here again tomorrow. If you couldn't get through today, try again tomorrow between 3 and 4 p.m. Pacific time. For Bobby Conway and Ed Stetzer, I'm Brian Perez. God bless you guys. Pastor's Perspective was sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa.